Night Lights of Kansas, and it's set about 1950. Night Lights of Kansas. The train rumbled and tumbled through the night lights of Kansas where the Wicked Witch of the West lived. No, it was Dorothy who lived there before she whirled to Oz inside the tornado, and her house fell down on the Wicked Witch of the East, owner of the Ruby Slippers. My mother and I were hurtling across the country to an equally wonderful California, the place where my parents lived during the war, before my father was sent overseas, and my mother returned to her parents' apartment in New York to have me. After my father came home, my parents and I stayed in the apartment. My grandparents moved to an old brick building whose lobby was filled with birds in cages. Finches, canaries, parrots, and lovebirds. I wished the birds would talk, but they never did. The day before we left for California, we went to say goodbye to my grandparents. My mother went upstairs first, while my father took me to say goodbye to the birds. The lobby was dark, even in daytime, and I wondered if the birds missed the light, but my father said birds could get used to lots of things. We stopped in front of one of the cages. The parrot inside was blue, red and green like finger paints. He looked sort of crumpled. He looked sad all by himself, Daddy. My father said that the parrot reminded him of a bird he'd heard about in the jungle during the war. It was the last living speaker of an extinct language. Extinct, he said, is when people don't speak that language anymore. They taught the birds to talk, but then all the people and the birds died, all except that one. The language was kind of strange, he said. When people spoke it, they couldn't understand each other, and they began to fight. The opposite of what's supposed to happen when we talk. We're supposed to use our words when we get mad, I said. My teacher always tells us that. Daddy ruffled my hair. That's right, sweetheart. But sometimes we get mixed up about what words mean, a little like the birds and the people in the jungle. He looked sad, like the bird. Mean is like angry, I said. Yes, but it's also about something else. When a word means something, it tells you what that thing is all about. Like daughter means you're my little girl. He hugged me close. You're very sweet, certainly not mean. So daddy means you're my daddy, I said. And I'll always love you. I want you to remember that. He tickled my nose, and I said I would, even though he wasn't coming with us to California. He was a doctor and had to stay in New York to work and make people feel better. On the train, my mother slept in the upper berth and I slept in the lower one, my clothes tucked into a little hammock next to the window. During the night, I would wake up and see lights flickering outside the window, red and yellow, and I thought they were the eyes of monsters watching from dark caves. When we finally got to California, a jeep took us to a place called Sunset Ranch. My mother and I had a cottage to ourselves, but there were lots of other people, mainly ladies and children. I made friends with a boy named Danny in the cottage next door. He had red hair and freckles and came from Baltimore, Maryland. Sounded like Maryland, like the game Candyland. But Danny wasn't very merry. He was 7, 2 years older than me. One day while we were feeding carrots to the donkeys, he whispered that my parents were splitting up just like his. They don't want to live together anymore, he explained. I don't believe you, I yelled back at him. My daddy stayed home because of his work. He's a famous doctor. Yeah, that's what they tell us. They think we're stupid or something. I thought about his words that night when I couldn't get to sleep. I still didn't believe him, but I didn't tell my mother about it. She cried a lot now, especially when she talked to Danny's mom and the other ladies. Danny also told me that my mom and dad did something naughty in bed, in the dark. Something that sounded like fox. You know, was all he said when I asked for more information. I pictured my parents in bed with a hungry red fox lying between its fur flying. We telephone Daddy once a week. This is, true and not true. Telephone Daddy once a week, sometimes Grandma and Grandpa. The phone was in a little booth like a closet outside the dining hall. On the wall next to the booth was a map with the letters Nevada on the top. What does Nevada mean, I asked Danny. What? You know, Nevada, Nevada. Nevada, he said, and rolled his eyes. I thought the word sounded hot and dry like the weather. Nevada, that's how you say it, and that's where we are. Don't you even know that? He went out to play baseball with some boys, and I decided that the two words Nevada and California mean the same thing, just like forest and trees or ocean and sea. July stretched into August, and one hot, sticky afternoon, Danny told me that tomorrow he'd be going home with his mom and baby sister. Maybe I'll get to see my dad, but just once in a while. We were alone behind the barn by a patch of tall, itchy grass. Danny's red hair ruffled in the breeze, reminding me of foxes, and also of the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. We'd each seen the movie, and Danny had the real book. I felt sorriest for the Tin Man because he had no heart, but Danny liked the Cowardly Lion best. He really wants to be brave, he said. Danny was coloring all the pictures with crayons, though you weren't supposed to color in books. I'm making it look pretty, he told me. Now, he said, I'll show you mine if you show me yours, tugging at his denim shorts. Yours, you know, down there. He started to lift the skirt of my buttercup yellow sundress, but I did it myself, and then pulled down my white underpants with the day of the week, Monday, stitched in pink. In a flash, my panties puddled around my ankles. Danny whipped down his own shorts and underpants to show his thing sticking out, like it was proud of itself. You can't do that, he said. You've got nothing there. I do too. He gently reached out, exploring my soft pee-pee place, and I touched him, stroking the crinkly smooth skin. Our eyes met. Then the dinner gong rang, breaking the spell. Danny gave me a little wink. We yanked on our clothes and went back to join our mothers. After dinner, we called Daddy. I told him I was having fun, and he blew me a kiss all the way out west. See, I told Danny later as we played outside, they can't be splitting up. We're phoning him all the time. He's back in New York, eh? He said, Danny, pressing on the burnt sienna crayon so hard, he tore the Cowardly Lion's mane. I got mad at him then, mad at everything he'd said and done, and mad that he was leaving. So when he went inside to pee, I ripped the picture of the lion out of his book, folded it up small, and stuffed it in my pocket. Then my mother called me into bed. My picture's gone, I heard Danny shout when he came back outside. Did you see my lion, Mary Beth? I pretended I didn't hear him, roaring through the screen door. Next morning, I finished coloring the picture, and I would have given it back, maybe. But Danny stayed indoors helping his mom, and then Pete, the caretaker, drove him to the station. Bye, Danny, I called as the Jeep pulled away, but he didn't answer. I waved for a long time. That night, I touched myself under the blankets, thinking about the tall grass. Do you and Daddy have foxes anymore? I asked Mommy, but she didn't understand. A week after Danny and his family left, my mother and I left Sunset Ranch too. Like Dorothy, I wanted to go home. I had 2 souvenirs, a beaded headband, which Pete gave me for helping with the chores, and the picture of the Cowardly Lion. I made believe I could put on my ruby headband, clip my heels together, and fly home just like Dorothy in her magic slippers. And I pictured my heart like the Tin Man's, red and bright and unbreakable as one of those rubies. At night, I sank deep into the cushioned berth, watching the lights flicker outside the window, feeling the rocking of the train as it sped back through Kansas, entering other worlds. Thank you.